Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Horse Business. My name's George, I am your host. And today we're going to be speaking with Kirsten Mayne. In this episode, we're going to highlight some of the key principles within the dressage industry. How Kirsten has worked her way from a very young age up to being the rider that she is today. But we also take a look at Kirsten's business strategy setup and how she goes about making her businesses work for her, as well as being able to compete at the top level of international dressage. So here we are, Kirsten. Kirsten, thank you for joining me today. So what would be really great to do is just to get an understanding for the audience who you are and what you do at the moment.
Okay. Basically, in a nutshell, I am a professional dressage rider. I compete horses and I run a sales business of dressage and sometimes all-rounders, but mainly dressage horses. Okay. And that is what we do.
Yep. Okay. And is that something that you have always done?
Yeah. I turned professional, I think I was 18. And then from there, that's all I've ever done.
Right.
Yeah, I've never had another job before. Like I've had other jobs, but like dressage it's been like one job.
Yeah.
So yeah, since I was 18.
Yeah. Okay. And you still love it?
Open-ended question. I think there's days you love it and then there's days you don't, but I think that's, it's more of a vocation. I think it's something that you do because you love it and you have to really love it to get you through some of the tough days.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fine. So you said that you're an international rider and you sell horses and things like that.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like? Is it a case of you're an international rider and sell horses, or or you're an international rider first and then? Does that make sense? If you're an international rider first and then you sell horses, or do you sell the horses and then but you also compete as well?
It's a muddled situation with mine because it's not really like black and white. It's not something that like, oh, I just do this on this day and I just do that on that day. So it's not like I just do a competition day and nothing else, because I could go to a show and then show horses in the afternoon when I get home. They are two separate businesses in as such that they aren't the same job. But in respect to, are they two separate entities? No, they are very muddled because we compete the sales horses and, for me, every horse is for sale, no matter whether I like to keep them or not.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, money is money and a horse is a horse. And as much as we love them and as much as we'd like to keep the really good ones, they always want to be the ones that people want to buy.
Absolutely. So, that's the reality of it. You can hold on to something for a hope, but actually if that time is right and you've got the right money and that horse can go on and help somebody else. And
like when we buy some of the baby horses that we have in conjunction, like when the owners, and we always have a plan like, oh, if anyone ever offered us this amount of money, we'd always sell. So I think, especially with the big horses that we've got, the top horses, there's always a figure in your head. I think that you'd like, if someone offered you life-changing money, I would never turn it down because, they can break their leg in the field the next week. So I think you have to be really realistic, and as heart-wrenching and as horrible as it is, at the end of the day, you have to be realistic.
Yeah, and that's the reality, really. I think what some people struggle with is they get attached to the horses, and that becomes a real challenge. So it sounds like you've got a good way of coping with that.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm not attached to horses at all, but actually it's complete opposite. I am very attached to them, and we do everything we can for them to give them the best lifestyle they possibly can have. But for me, I always think the horse, if there's a home that is the perfect home for the horse, then why not? Why not give someone else an opportunity to have that horse and go on and go and do amazing things? Yeah. We really enjoy horses that we've sold going on to, national championships and European finals. We had a horse this year that won a bronze medal at the Young Rider Championships.
Wow.
So that for me is very exciting to see. And it's so lovely because a lot of the time, they'll message and be like, oh my God, look what we've done. And that's exciting for me. I enjoy watching them going on to do stuff. Yeah, okay, it's nice if it's you doing it. But it's still amazing because then, people then go, oh, where did you get that horse from? And they'll say, me. And then it builds a
rapport, reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And reputation is everything in this industry, unfortunately. It can be tarnished very quickly. And so you have to be as honest and open as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point. You've got to be open and honest. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that for whatever reasons, especially when you're in the game of selling horses. That can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't actively know of anyone that's ever lied, but that it's very easy to just miss a slight detail out.
I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people that they'll sell one and it'll go very easy and they'll get good money for the horse and they're like, oh, this is really easy. And then they do a couple and then they're like, oh, this is still really easy. And then they get the next one. They either can't sell it or for whatever reason it goes wrong. Then they start to realize it's not easy.
No.
Selling horses is very hard because a lot of time you're selling to amateur riders, which is your main bulk of your industry.
Yep.
And as lovely as some of them are, there are a lot of them that are very difficult to deal with. Not necessarily make your life hard, but, you have to work very, very hard to make them happy. And that's fine. I don't mind doing that. But for a lot of people, they want the quick buzz and the quick money. And okay, those days are great. Like I've had weeks where we sold 3 horses and no one had them vetted. And it was unbelievable. And they were really expensive horses. And it's just pot luck, and then you have a month where not a single horse goes through a vet check, so it's really, really tough. You can never live on that money's going to be there or that money's going to be there because it's just until that money is in the bank, it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing there's so many things that people like to check with horses, like you mentioned vettings, and there's so many points that something can go wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think I don't actually know anything other than buying a house that I would ever know that you'd go and buy something and have so many checks done on something. I think, people say moving house is stressful. I think it's as stressful buying a horse because you go through so much highs and lows of, I found the perfect horse, then it fails the vet, then you have to go and look for another one and then that fails the vet or its x-rays aren't right or something like that. And, and at the end of the day, it's so tough now. Many, many years ago, you never had the x-rays. So it was just that you bought the horse, and that was a lot easier. But now a lot of people are buying x-rays rather than buying the horse. And that becomes another discussion. It's...
So really, not only are you managing expectations, which is fascinating, you've got the expectations of not just the buyer, but you've got an owner as well who expects a certain amount of money.
Yeah, and we have, we can't always achieve some goals that the owners want for the horses, i.e. they want a certain amount of money or, they want the horse sold in a certain amount of time. Not everything happens perfectly and you cannot make everybody happy, and it's very difficult when you have an owner who's very adamant on the money that they want for the horse and maybe the horse isn't worth that money or at that time that horse isn't a fashionable horse. Fashions come and go and 3 months down the line the horse might become fashionable again. So it's difficult to manage. In my job is I have to manage both sides. I have to manage the buyer's expectations and the owner's expectations, and you are basically piggy in the middle.
Yes.
And having to whilst my main objective is making sure my owners are prioritized, you also want to not let the buyer down because you want to give them a good experience of buying a horse. It should be fun. It should be exciting. They should be happy. They should want to do it. And then when that is not easy to manage at the same time, when you've also got to manage your owner, it's tricky sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Brilliant. I just wanted to now take a moment and go back to who is Kirsten, because you're Kirsten Mayne Dressage.
Yeah.
You're doing this fantastic work, but were you born into horses? What got you where you are today?
No, I wasn't born into horses, but my mum rode when I was little.
Okay.
She had a really bad accident when I was about 3 or 4.
Okay.
She broke her leg quite considerably.
Right.
I might have been slightly older than that, actually, maybe 6. But all I remember is she broke her leg really badly. I had just started like properly. I think I sat on a horse before I could walk. We had a riding school down the bottom of the road where I lived, and I just grew up there.
Okay.
I think Mum used it as like a creche because it was free childcare for her. You know, it was brilliant. And I used to walk home for lunch and then walk back in the summer holidays because it was literally down the bottom of the hill. And I just used to walk home for lunch, and she'd give me lunch, and then she'd send me back down again.
Fair enough. So it's fair to say that you did start that at a relatively young age then?
Yeah, I used to. I remember sweeping the yard when I was like 6 or 7, and then I used to sweep the yard and get a free ride. So that was my payment for sweeping the whole yard.
Now you look back and you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, I try and get a 6 or 7-year-old to sweep a yard now. You got no chance.
That's very true.
But I was just, I'd do anything to ride. I'd literally do anything, and then I got, I bugged every Christmas. I used to put on my list that I wanted a pony every Christmas. It was the only thing. I never put anything else on the list. It was one thing, pony, want a pony. And then finally, when I was 8, they finally gave in and bought me a pony. And it was the naughtiest pony. It was the cheapest pony that you could possibly find. And it was so naughty. It bucked everybody off. And we ended up having him on an 8-week trial because they didn't really want to sell it to someone that couldn't cope with him.
Okay.
And he was just fantastic. And he bucked me off every day for those 8 weeks. And I remember the day before we were going to send him back because my mum was like, no, we're not having this pony. It's too naughty. And the day before she said, if it bucks you off again, I'm sending it back. And it never bucked ever again.
Wow.
And it obviously, it just knew. And he was brilliant. He was a fantastic little 13-hand, but he was way too much for me at the time. But we just grew together and had the best time.
Sort of through those challenging things, though, that's what makes the rider really. That would have, some people that would have put them off, some people that would have made them try harder.
I didn't really have a choice. It was ride this or don't ride anything. And I was too interested in riding and too gutsy and didn't care. I broke so many bones on that pony. Smashed my face up into a jump.
Oh God.
I didn't care. No. I just got back on. He was brilliant.
Yeah. Sort of helps you with what you're doing today, and you're selling things as much as you think you've been, you know what that horse is going to be. You never know what it could give you on the day when you get on it. So I guess it's helped you now as well.
Yeah. And when I turned professional at 18, I went and worked at a yard in Surrey for 3 years. And I rode everything. I walked in that yard, and the first day I rode 14 horses.
Wow.
It was, having gone from like only riding 2 or 3 horses a day. Yeah. It was a big step up. Because I thought, that when I went for my interview, they're like, oh, you'll only ride like 6 or 7. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Thinking 6 or 7 is easy. I can easily get 6 or 7 done a day. And I walked in and they gave me my list, and it was 14 on my first day. I got on my first horse on that first day at 7 o'clock in the morning. I did not get off my last horse till about 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
And that was every day. I used to get a day and a half off a week. And on my half day, I think my day supposed to finish at 12, and I'd be maybe out by 3. Yeah. And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But that's how you own your craft, because now if you hadn't have had that, you wouldn't be the rider you are today.
And I think that's what's maybe a lot of riders now are missing. I mean, Alden Craig, when I was there, was fantastic. There was 7 or 8 riders. It was run by Vicky Thompson-Winfield and Ian Winfield. Vicky's an previous Olympic rider. She was absolutely incredible, and I learnt so much from her, but I had to ride everything. There was no until I'd been there a little while, then I could start to pick.
Yes. Yeah.
I rode some absolute dog horses and some amazing horses. Yeah. And we sold a lot of horses, and that's where I really got stuck into the start of selling.
Okay.
Ian used to have a lot of the sales horses that he used to buy from Holland and Germany, and they used to come in, and you just basically had to produce them and sell them as quickly as possible for as much money as possible. And, that was the business alongside the livery that he had. I mean, there was 84 horses on site. It was huge. Yeah, it was big. It was amazing, and the place was immaculate always. It was stunning, and it was a massive environment, and it was a lot to navigate because not only are you navigating riding the 14 horses that I used to ride, there was 7 other riders there who with all very large personalities, and it was very difficult some days because not everyone got on.
No.
One of my best friends that I did juniors with, she worked there as well. So we had like a really good little like time because, you know, there was 2 of us together and we had a brilliant time. But, you know, we were young. We wanted to go out. We wanted to party as well. So we used to go into London every Saturday night and we'd get the last train home. And I used to walk on the yard at like 7:15 in the morning, still dressed in my dressed in the night before, and used to get changed, hadn't slept a wink. And then on a Sunday, I just used to power through. And then by Monday was my day off. And that was it. And then so I only had to power through on a Sunday.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I couldn't do that now, but like when you're 18, 19, it's easy to do.
It is.
But yeah, that was really where I learned the craft of riding so many different horses.
Yeah. And so you've just actually reminded me of something else based on that story, is I believe you then went in doing some work in nightclubs. Is that right?
I did that before.
That was right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'd done like about a year.
Okay.
So I must have been 18, nearly 19 when I joined Oldham Craig.
Okay.
But I'd done a year working as a promotions manager in a couple of the nightclubs in Cambridge.
Right.
When I was supposed to be at university.
Oh, right. So it wasn't interrupting your riding, it was interrupting the university.
Well, no, I had signed up to go to university and then never actually went.
Right. Okay.
And told my parents that I'd gone.
Oh, God. Fair enough.
And they didn't know that I wasn't going. So I was riding all day and then working all night.
Okay.
So I was never really at home. And then about 6 months to 8 months later, my dad was like, "Oh, how's uni going?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not going anymore." He was like, "What?" And then I told him and he's like, "What are you doing with your life?" And then that's when I got the job riding full time because he was like, "You need a proper job. You need to work out what you are doing. You either go to uni or you get a job."
Yeah.
I was like, "I'll get a job."
Fair enough. Interesting. What were you going to go to uni for? Did you actually?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I think it was like business or something like that. It was something I really didn't want to do.
Yeah,
I at that point had no idea what I wanted to do. And it's really tough when it's like you're 18 and it's like, right, decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I bully to anybody that knows at 18 what they want to do, but I didn't really know. All I knew is that I loved riding. I was competing in Young Riders. I was loving doing Young Riders. I was teaching a bit. I'd got my teaching license and my insurance and all that stuff. So I was doing quite a lot of teaching at that point. I'd sold my junior horse and I basically took 6 months off from riding because I couldn't afford a Young Riders horse. And then a lady bought me a Young Riders horse. Then that sort of snowballed into Young Riders. And I was like, oh, I could do Young Riders and not go to university. And then that didn't really work. So then he was like, no, you need to get a job. And that's when I went and got a job at Oldham Craig.
Like perfect job for you, really.
It was. And I literally saw the advert on Dressage.
Right, okay.
It was like, I was just on my laptop and it pinged up rider wanted. And I was like, oh, I'll apply. I didn't think I'd get it. Yeah. Because I didn't know whether or not I was any good. Like I knew that I was not a bad rider. Like I competed for juniors and done a couple of pre-St. George's. So I knew I could ride, but I hadn't done, I'd ridden like 15 horses in my life. Like I hadn't done the hundreds and hundreds and, and I hadn't even like properly done a good pre-St. George. I think I'd maybe got 63% in a pre-St. George. You know what I mean? I wasn't getting like 70% and stuff like that, and then, they basically just took me, I went for my interview and then from there, they just took me under their wing and we had an absolute blast. I went and did every show, competed internationally at Young Riders, competed internationally in small tour. It was super fun.
Okay. So that's led me to a question to ask you. Do you think that work environment that you so enjoyed still exists today? Because
I think it does abroad.
Okay.
I don't think it in this country anymore. I think the yards that were catering for that environment was your Oldham Craig, was your Talland and stuff like that. I don't think there's anywhere in this country now that can house that many riders in one place and run a yard of that big. I think they are non-existent in this country. I think abroad, they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
There are so many of them. You can go to several yards abroad. I could list you off a reel of them now, you know, and the opportunities over there are so much more than they are here now.
Why is that?
I think it's a tough one to answer. Why is it? I think money comes into it. I think in the UK, we don't have the land space or the money behind it for what people want for big yards. There just isn't really anywhere. And a lot of people have them as private yards in the UK. You know, they maybe have 20 horses maximum. You know, there's nowhere really that I could tell you that runs a professional dressage yard with over 50 horses anymore in the UK.
No, I think you're right. I think it got to a point, or it seems to have got to a point where now everyone's shrinking in size.
I know a lot of breeders now that are giving up breeding in the UK because they can't get the money for the foals. A lot of them are selling up. A lot of them are, you know, maybe getting older now, so they want to retire. And there's not really the new ones wanting to take that over because it's a lot of money. Yes. So it's tough. When over there they get paid to breed, it's perfect.
Yeah, no. And that brings me back to the point I made in an earlier podcast, which was about venues, because there's clearly an issue. I don't know whether it's just dressage. I'm assuming it's across the board, really. Dressage has been hit probably a little bit more recently with the news of Hickstead and various things like that. But what do you think that we need to do as an industry? Have you got any thoughts on how we can go about changing this? How can we get more breeders on board? Is it something we need to address with wider society? Any thoughts on that?
Regards to venues, it's a cost. The overheads for running is so expensive. There's a lot of overheads that people don't appreciate. And whilst it's an expensive sport, it's an elite sport, we know that. It's very difficult to then run an elite sport for the right amount of money that people are happy, because a lot of people that do the sports whilst it's an elite sport are amateurs.
Yes.
You know, and maybe they then can't afford, it prices them out if you raise the price of stuff. So you have to think about other options. There are plenty of other options, you know, that we've had a little discussion about previous to this. But until there is a marked change, nothing will change.
No.
And until the federations start to change stuff, nothing will change.
Yeah. I do wonder if it goes back to that, goes back to the organisations and the federations that have a certain amount of control over it all, and whether they really do need to get involved, or whether that will upset people more because they're putting.
It's a very difficult thing to do, because the federation are trying to keep everybody happy at the end of the day. You know, their goal is to make everybody happy, but trying to keep everybody happy sometimes makes nobody happy.
Yes.
So it's, do they cater for the elite riders? Do they cater for the amateur riders? Like now we have a lot more championships. I've just done the associate championships on the Spanish horse for the Cavago, who sponsored the associate championships this year. And I think the big thing is getting the sponsors. You know, you need the sponsors to run the shows, because without the sponsors, you don't have shows. They don't run without sponsors anymore. Whereas beforehand, you could run it from the venue. They don't have the money to put into running these huge shows anymore. No. So the sponsors are the big thing. You need the sponsors to run the shows. And we've just had a big show at Onley for the associate championships. It's still running this weekend.
Right.
And they've had huge entries. I think they've got tomorrow, I think they have 329 starts in a day. Incredible. For one show. It's amazing. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's a lot of different people doing tests, you know, and it's a big show to run. You know, when you've got maybe 300 starts per day, that's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah. And is that Spanish?
No, it's everything.
That's everything.
So the Associate Championships caters for, I'm going to probably miss something out now, but it's part bred horses, it's purebred horses, not just Spanish, but they've got natives, they've got the forces, do a championship for all the people that work in the forces.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it was so exciting because we were there on the same day as the forces, and it was so amazing because they were all riding in their uniforms.
Yeah, I bet.
It was so lovely to see. It was really nice. They've had Lusitanos. Oh God, now you put me on the spot.
No, but you're just highlighting
huge.
The fact that they're across the board.
Yeah. Oh, the cobs, they've got the all the different championships for the cobs now, and it's all like last year. Oh, and the veterans as well, which are very important.
Yeah.
Because they do a veteran rider and a veteran horse, which is really nice because you have a really big mix of people in that. So that's quite fun to watch. But yeah, it was last year it was split between 2 venues, and then this year they put everything in one venue.
Okay.
There was a few teething problems the first day, but big shows like that, I don't think they quite realised how big it was going to be. So, year 1, it's going to be not brilliant. Year 2, hopefully they can improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now I want to come back to your business, if you don't mind. I think, or from what I understand, your business is quite unique in that most people that I've heard of selling or doing anything with horses generally have like a livery, and then they try and do it around the livery. From my understanding, your business is the selling and your own training, but you actually perhaps have someone else running the livery. Could you explain how it works?
So Jo is like my little life savior. She is like Mama Bear. She does everything. It's great. I first met Jo when I moved the horses to Kiso. I only moved 4 horses into her yard. So she was renting a barn at Kiso when Simon Bates owned Kiso. And I was looking for a new yard. I had 4 horses at the time that I was riding. And I was like, right, I need somewhere new. Let's go to Kiso. So went and looked at one of the yards at Kiso. Actually, I've known Jo since I was a kid. She's always been at Kiso. She's had the yard for 10 years at Kiso. So I'd known her from when I used to go and compete there as a kid. I'd always seen her around, so I sort of like knew her to say hello to.
Yes.
Mum knew her quite well. Anyway, I was looking around the yard and she was sat on the veranda, and we were just walking around the veranda, and I just bumped into her and said, oh, hey. And she said, oh, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, we're looking for livery. And she said, oh, you didn't contact me. And I said, oh, I didn't know you had any spaces. And she said, oh, yeah, I've got 4. And I was like, I've got 4 horses. So next thing, we went over and had a look at her barn, and it was just beautiful, and it was so lovely. And we were like, right, we're moving in. We moved in the next week. And then as liveries, she had quite a lot of other liveries at the time. There was 21 stables there.
Okay.
And she had one of her own horses, and the groom that worked for her had a horse there, but everything else was livery. And gradually, as a livery moved on, or a horse moved on somewhere else, I was like, oh, can I have that stable? And she was like, yeah. And then I gradually had half a barn, like about 6 months later.
Nice.
And then I think after 2 years, the whole barn was then mine. And it just evolved from Jo running her own livery yard to Jo running my liveries for me, because she was just the perfect person. Yeah, she's got a wealth of knowledge as to horse care. She's done it for years and years. And basically now she has her livery business. It is hers. And then I have my business, but we basically combine them together a little bit. So it's a bit messy, but it works perfectly for us.
Yeah, I mean, why it's interesting is, like I say, people are trying to have horses on livery and then sell them. And I think it's really interesting to hear that you've sort of separated the two.
Yeah.
And how does that look? Because if people are struggling to make a livery work, and it's their own livery and their own training, and how would you explain how you've managed to make that work for someone that might find that interesting at home?
Yeah, so we charge a flat rate per week for training livery.
Yeah.
Portion of that is its full livery price.
Okay.
So Jo's full livery price gets paid to Jo.
Yep.
And the training livery comes to me. We work out a price that is competitive. it includes everything that we give people.
Yeah.
And it just seems to make enough money that everybody can live. It's not brilliant money. I don't think livery is brilliant money.
No.
But everybody can eat, and the horses are very well looked after.
Yeah. And would you say, if you hadn't have met Jo at that time and gone down that journey, do you think you would have done the business like this anyway?
I don't think the business would have been as big as what it is now.
Okay.
I think I would have done it on a smaller scale. It is only because of the situation that I am in. I am very lucky. Like, I can walk in and out of that yard. I don't have to go for 2-3 days. Those horses are well looked after. We've now got 2 girls that work for us who, once they finish with Jo in the mornings, once they've done the morning routine, they then work for me for a few hours to help me out, getting horses ready, tacking up, untacking, all of the stuff that takes loads of time, washing horses, bathing horses, getting horses ready for show, getting the lorry ready for, it's a lot of stuff to do that on your own is quite difficult with that amount of horses. But because now we've got a really stable, good team. It just works.
It seems it. I've seen a lot of yards, a lot of different setups. Yours seems to just work.
Yeah,
really well.
I couldn't honestly tell you how it works. And I wouldn't want to let on our little secret.
No, of course. No.
But it just does. Like, okay, I'm not the easiest person in the world to work for. I like things done a certain way. Jo's exactly the same. We're very neat. We like things tidy. We like things looked after. I don't like the horses to be dirty. I like the beds to be immaculate. Jo likes everything to be really neat.
Yeah.
So that works because we are on the same page on nearly everything.
Yeah.
Don't we argue? Everybody does.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's very, very rare.
It's very hard not to have the odd argument.
I mean, I think I've argued with Jo twice in 7 years.
Oh, okay. Don't
and
really
it wasn't
argue
even
then.
over a horse. It was nothing to do with a horse.
Right, okay.
But yeah, we just get it. We just seem to work. Jo knows exactly what she's doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, and it just gels. It just works. Perfect. And it's very hard. I wouldn't be able to replicate that anywhere else, I don't think.
No.
So it just is, it was just fate, and I think it was just luck.
No, it's brilliant. And I think from that, you must be able to provide, or hopefully be able to give us a tip. So if someone else is setting up any sort of business like this, whether it be a livery, a sales livery, what is the one key or 2 key things that they should be looking at or conscious of before they jump into something like that?
Don't try and please everybody.
Okay.
It doesn't work. You can put yourself out there and try and make everybody happy, but you'll only end up causing yourself loads of misery. I think what works for us is we are very like, this is how we do it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I think that's the only way you can be. It doesn't work for everybody. Not every yard's for every person. Not every yard is for every horse. And I always say to people, if you don't like it, it's no problem. Find somewhere else.
Yes.
Because there'll always be someone else out there that it does work for and are more than appreciative of the effort and the time. Because at the end of the day, I spend from 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night most days on my phone, speaking to customers and doing all that, which a lot of people don't seem to realise. And I've had owners and stuff moan at me that I don't give them enough attention. And at the end of the day, I can only do what I can do. I have to at some points have a break for myself, and it's not all the time about them. Sometimes it's like, okay, I try my hardest, but at the end of the day, you cannot please everybody.
No.
So if anyone's setting up a business, do it for you. Do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you, oh, you should do it like this or you should do it like that. Because at the end of the day, if you want to do it a certain way, do it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think people go on there's so many businesses, I think they go on what the preconceived idea is of this sort of business. But then from the evidence I'm seeing, anyone that's doing it that way ends up stuck in a hole of not quite earning enough money, not quite doing it right because they can't charge what they need to charge. But actually, you've got to you've got to set your boundary at the right place, because what is the point if you can't actually live on it?
No, I know. And you have to say to people, and people have to be realistic as to what things cost. Like, every week we get a thing of, oh, the bedding's going to go up price-wise. Oh, the feed's going to go up price-wise. The hay's going to go up. You know, there's always an increase somewhere, and they can't expect you to go, oh, yeah, take it out of your pocket. No, we're looking after your animal. You know, at the end of the day, they are animals and they need looking after. If they need X, Y, or Z, they get X, Y, or Z, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, it is, if you can't afford it, I always say, don't have a horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us nicely into the fact that I speak to a couple of different livery yard owners, and their constant response, if I say put your prices up, is, oh, we can't because the person down the road is this price.
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily comparing apples with apples, because you might be using the top of the range shavings and they're using some straw. Or what is different?
Yeah, there is a big difference, you know, and whilst everything you try to do is to keep the cost down as much as possible for people, sometimes things can't keep costs down.
No.
You know, you can't, unless you're ordering 19 pallets of bedding at one time, and amazing for the people that can store that.
Yes.
But if you haven't got the storage for that and you only have the storage for 3 pallets, you can only order 3 pallets.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
It's so
you
true.
have to do what you can do. Like, I think it's amazing for the people that have the opportunity to fill their barn up with hay that they've cut off their own field. Great, good for you. You only want to charge your customers 170 quid a week? Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you can do that, great. If you can fill your yard up with people like that, great.
Yeah.
No problem. But not everybody can do that.
No.
And it's a big change in the prices in the country as well. Like, prices up north can be slightly cheaper sometimes because things can be cheaper up north. Again, prices over like Wales way, cheaper again because it's cheaper stuff over there. Where we live, it's not cheap. It's not a cheap place. No. The yard is 1 mile outside the centre of Cambridge.
Yeah.
It is an expensive area.
Absolutely.
You know, so you have to say to people and be realistic. We live in an expensive area. However, because we live in an expensive area, we are very fortunate that we have very good transport links. Customers, we are right bang central in the middle of the country. We have never have a customer go, oh, that's too far to travel to.
Yeah.
Because we are right in the middle. So we have a very big network of customers that can come from all over the country. So, you know, do you want to keep your horse in Cornwall and sell it in Cornwall? No one's going to travel down there to buy a horse.
It's a very good point. Yeah, it's a good point. And I liken that to the transport business. Obviously, I've transported you a few times, but I get that all the time. Oh, that's so expensive. Someone else will do it for this. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm in a great location
near
Newmarket. I'm using probably one of, if not some of the best boxes on the market. And you got to pay for that.
Yeah.
And if you don't realise the value in that, then fine, go and find someone with the whatever.
Yeah, that hasn't got a licence. That's the horse can jump over the crossbar.
Yeah.
Fine.
Exactly. And I try and do my best for people, but sometimes you just can't please them.
No, exactly.
They'd rather go cheap over.
Exactly. And I find that's a lot of, I get asked a lot of the time, oh, could you give me a discount? No.
No. Straight up.
No, like I have customers that have got 4 horses with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a discount over your 1 horse.
Yeah.
They don't get a discount on their 4 horses. So why are you going to get a discount on your 1 horse? But yeah, I get asked that all the time. Oh, could you just do that for less? Or could you do your percentage cheaper when I charge a percentage on the sale?
Yep.
No.
I don't realise the time and effort that goes into all of that as well.
And like, you know, I worked it out the other day. I get paid £3 every time I sit on a horse.
Okay.
£3.
Yeah.
I ride that horse for half an hour, 45 minutes a day for 4 or 5 days a week. Yeah, £3.
And you work that out, it's a bit.
Yeah. It's not even minimum wage.
No, it's not. It's not.
You know?
Yeah,
so it's, you know, but people don't realise that. They just think, oh, you're really expensive. Well, no, I'm not. Because if you actually work out what I actually earn per time I ride your horse, actually when I go and teach, I earn more money teaching than I do riding any of the horses that I have in to sell. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I get that. So whilst we're on the topic of like money then, and because you sell horses, is it unreasonable that it's almost a bit of an elite sport? Because to get any horse, it's going to be a few thousand, but to get, you know, a horse that might be able to go and take you somewhere, it's going to be a lot more money. So how do you feel about that?
I'm in a very nice situation, whereas I could buy the cheaper horse, not me personally, but like as a rider, I could get a cheaper horse and make it more expensive.
Yes.
that is my privileged situation I'm in. For people buying horses, you have to be privileged to have that kind of money. A lot of people I've sold to have got money from an inheritance, or they are naturally wealthy people. But, different people have different budgets. You can always, if you find the right horse for you, you can always buy a nice horse at most price ranges. Dressage horses, I think, is definitely more elite. I think because they are more difficult to find for amateur riders. I think, the safer ones and the more sensible ones, they come at a premium because they are harder to find.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, a lot of time it is an elite. It's an elite sport, whether you're an amateur or not. It's an elite sport.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you think, though, that is what causes some of this? You've got the people on the outside of the equestrian world, they have an opinion. Do you think that's what causes a lot of it? Because we're perceived to be elite and, special.
I think it's not very accessible to other people. There is a foundation called the Emil Farry Foundation. He does very, very good work with inner city children. He brings them out and gives them riding lessons and, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you lived in the middle of London and you grew up on a very poor estate, at what point do you have access to a horse?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's more like a countryside thing that kids grow up with, like the farmers and all that kind of stuff. You have a horse. It's very difficult for inner city kids growing up to then be able to access it, and a lot of the riding schools have shut down because of the costs of running them and the overheads. So, there's some riding schools are a 2-year wait list to get your kid into to learn how to ride, and I think even the countryside kids now are starting to realize that it's difficult to actually get into the riding schools now, whereas they used to be dime a dozen when we were kids growing up. I mean, I was really lucky. I had one down the bottom of the road. Yeah. But yeah, it's harder now, I think, with the rising cost of what it costs to do everything and running those types of places with the insurances. It's just not feasible for a lot of places now, which is why a lot of places have closed. And I think that's really, it's a shame because a lot of the kids that maybe would have ridden now don't ride because they don't have the access.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so I didn't start riding until I was 15. It was through a real want and a real need that I ended up riding.
Yeah.
I wasn't open to me on a plate. Father wasn't necessarily for it. So you're talking to a 14, 15-year-old kid now. They want to start riding and they've not got any of that access. What do you say? What do you suggest?
Go and work for someone.
Yeah.
Maybe go start and see if you let them do an apprenticeship. The apprenticeship schemes are a really good idea. Get yourself in wherever you can. Offer to go and help out. Offer to go and I have messages, well, probably 1 or 2 a week of people wanting to come and work for free. We can't take anyone under the age of 16 on our yard because of insurances, but if people want to come and help out, we've had many 16, 17-year-olds that they come at the weekend and they work all weekend, and we can give them opportunities if they work hard enough. They get the opportunities. It's the same as when I was a kid. You work hard, you get the opportunities. I don't find it quite difficult to find the ones that actually want to work.
That is true. I mean, I can't talk for people this day and age, but I was the same. I was 15. I walked down to my local livery yard. I said, I'd like to ride a horse. It's like, oh, okay, come down. And then, worked for them, was given the rides, luckily. Went from that to another horse, which was slightly better or nicer or whatever, and then worked my way up to where I got to in the end. I
think that's the only way to do it. I think now kids that don't necessarily have the money to buy the lessons and stuff, they need to just go and take themselves down to if they've got a local riding club or RDA or anything like that, and just offer to help. No, in any way, shape or form that they can help, mucking out, skipping out, poo picking, all of that stuff. That then they can potentially get the rides on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think actually the idea is a great shout. You've also got like World Horse Welfare. If you're near that, they'll be more than grateful for some help. But it's also bumping into the right people. If I'd gone down to that yard and they'll, oh no, it's my horse. You're not going to, then it would be different, but it is, but you're only going to know if you try.
Yeah, of course.
So brilliant. So we're going to get towards the closing now, but anyone that's watching this might actually want to know a bit more about what you could offer them. So I know we've mentioned that you do livery. If people wanted to do that, do you take a certain type of horse? What are your criteria? Just thought I'd run through that quickly.
Yeah. So when I have clients contact me about selling their horses, we always ask for videos.
Okay.
My bracket is I don't really do horses under 10,000. I find it's not enough time scale to get them in and out quick enough that you're going to make enough money on the horse to warrant your time that you're putting into it. So we normally take horses like above 10,000. We ask for videos of the horses so that we can see that, that it's not going to try and kill anybody.
You sort of vet it first. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And people always, we ask for quirks and issues with the horse. Every horse isn't perfect. No horse is perfect. So, if it's got an issue, fine. We happily take the horses that have issues as well, but we always declare it. We always be very honest with people and say it does this or this. I have the horses for a week. We assess them as much as we can. And then we speak to the owner and say, this is what we think we can do. And then we make a plan. The best thing I find for what I can offer people is that I can offer a very honest way of selling them. I don't like to hide things. I like to keep everything black and white. I'd rather overshare. And then when they get the horse home, they're like, oh, it's perfect. It hasn't done any of this. But I'd rather they said it hasn't done that than they ring me up and go, oh, it's done this, this and this. And then I'm like, I didn't know that. You know, it hadn't do that with us. Obviously, there's the odd one or two that horses aren't predictable. They change. They can move into a different home and completely change. And you have no idea why or what or whatever, but you have to try, you can do as much as you can to minimize that. And it's just, I try and be, a lot of my clients will call me fairly blunt.
I was about to say this actually. As you were getting towards the end, I was thinking I was going to say, yes, you're quite to the point, but actually that works really well for most people. Direct,
blunt. I can think of several other words to call me.
But when, especially with a relationship like ours, where you're asking me to do transport and things, I just want to know the facts. Is what it is, and then off we go.
Yeah, and we work with 2 transport companies. We work with you, and we work with another one who do trips for us. Yeah. And they deliver. You deliver the horses. You've taken my horses to competitions for me. And it's just about having people. We always like to work with people that we know and whom we can trust.
Yes.
And I think that is the big thing in the equine industry, is knowing who you can trust. And you have to be, you get burnt every now and again. You do. But if you don't try and trust people, then it's not very nice industry.
Be a bit lonely if you don't trust anyone.
Course, yeah,
I know of people who very much don't trust anyone. They try and do it all themselves. It's all very closed doors. But I found that to be very lonely.
Yeah, no, you have to be, you have to allow people the opportunity. And I'm very of the opinion of, I'll be quite nice to you until you burn me. And I'm not the most open and friendly person all the time, but I am, I work very hard and I'm very direct, and I know that. But I find a lot of my customers do like the fact that it's like, this is it. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
And we just get on with it. Yeah. I have customers that text me, oh, can you do this? And I'm like, I've already done it. And they're like, I didn't even have to ask.
Yes. It's the best way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hilarious when they message and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you've already done that. And it's just because it's, I know what they're thinking half the time. Luckily, I've got customers that have been with me for many years now. And we've sold multiple horses for them, and I've ridden multiple horses for them over the years. I've got very, very loyal customers. So I'm very lucky. And I have many, many repeat customers. One lady, I think she's bought 3 horses over the years. And she just keeps coming back. And then she'll go, oh, can I have another one? Or, oh, this one's, I really want to step up. Or can I have another one?
Yes.
So for me, I quite like the fact that we have the repeat customers.
Yes.
Yeah. It shows the business that you've got. If you've got people coming back to use you time and time again, it shows that you're doing something right.
Absolutely. Would you say that in the equestrian world, the the reputation or that kind of referral is the most you get, or do you do any marketing just quickly?
We use social media quite a lot. I
Yeah.
do like social media for promoting the horses. I think it's a brilliant way of promoting the horses. I use a lot of social media. I don't really put anything on social media other than horses, as you've seen on my social media. It is just horses.
Yes.
But I have my private life is my private life. I don't like to put that on social media. I think social media I only use it as a business tool. And that's the way I found it works very, very well. It's a great thing. It's also a demon. You have to, I think with the equine world, you live by the sword.
Yes.
So you have to be on your game.
Yeah. And surprisingly, it comes from all angles.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a big debate about social media now, but even I, as a transporter, get people commenting saying that we're exploiting horses. And you just, it's only because it's obvious.
I had it on TikTok the other day.
Oh, did you?
I put a video up of me riding it's a lovely 4-year-old. And it's not behind the vertical at all. Yet you get the comment, it's behind the vertical. It was above the bit, if anything.
Yeah.
But, you get the couch people.
Yes.
And you're never going to please everybody. And I think I'm very particular. Poor Tiff, my photographer.
Right, yeah.
She sends me, we'll do the photos for the sales horses. She'll send me maybe 200 to 300 photos per horse.
Yeah.
I probably pick 6.
Yes.
Because I go through them, I'm like, no. And it can be something as little as, it's slightly too bent here, or the head's slightly too here, or, and it's such a fraction of a second moment. It can ruin people's careers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, you have to be so careful now. And it's completely changed a lot recently. And you just, as long as you are doing the best you physically can, the horses are very well looked after and happy and wanting to do the job. I think that's all you can do.
Yeah. That's a general consensus across the board. I've spoken to a few other people and it's the same thing. But what we need to do is ensure that we all come together with this and all be on the same page of exactly that point. So if we divide now, it's not, No,
I think now is even more so that people have to support other people. I always like the fact that, I think riders should stick up for other riders. I don't think throwing anyone under the bus is a good idea, no matter how many times I've wanted to sometimes with some people. But, it's just not worth it.
No.
It's not worth it. And you will get what comes back at you.
Yeah.
And I always think that, you don't get on with everyone. Not everyone gets on with everyone. But I don't ever believe in throwing another rider under the bus.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So for me, in the dressage world, we all need to come together. We all need to support each other.
Yeah.
But it's supporting one another, but it's also supporting the venues. And we're a community, if you like. And if we got to come together really on these things.
Yeah.
So I think that's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
You're more than
that
welcome.
Brings our conversation to a close. It's very interesting to hear about how you do your business because it's different.
Yeah.
That's why I was really interested. But thank you for joining me.
You're more than welcome.
And if anyone wants to get hold of you,
just message me on Facebook.
So, nice and
Social
simple.
media is so easy.
Message on Facebook. We will put the links in the podcast description. But thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Cheers.